Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are barely 3 months to the general election, actually less than 90 days to the general election. At a critical moment where we are from nominations, then political presidential aspirants are being nominated. The next front will be taking the aspirants, the party list of the aspirants. That is another fireworks that we are going to experience. Now, in this video, I wanted us to look at very interesting development that I have been following, and it was captured well by the Sunday Nation. Now, if you look at this newspaper, they captured this article here. IBC wants sole mandate to pick returning officers. That story is talking about an amendment that IBC has proposed, and it's supposed to be taken to the National Assembly. I want us to look at that amendment critically because it has some political implications. And in the next few weeks, we are going to experience a lot of debate around these amendments. Now, the first bit of it is saying IBC wants the sole mandate to appoint the constituency returning officers. According to what is stipulated in the Constitution, the Election Act of 2011, is that IBC is supposed to send to parties the list of selected returning officers to political parties 14 days before they are formally employed. I think, to my understanding, it is some form of IPPG where political parties also have a stake or happen to understand what is happening in the coalition. And the reason why they are now saying this is because in the 2017, the rerun, there was a ruling that was made by Judge Odunga that nearly collapsed the rerun by then, because Judge Odunga gave a ruling that IBC breached the law in appointing the returning officers that spearheaded the 2017 general election by not involving the political parties. Now, IBC, and after that, actually they rushed to the Court of Appeal, and that judgment was upheld. That is why that rerun continued. But I think by then, it was being seen as a way just to make sure that the rerun is not held. But then, that is point number one. Number two is to allow the returning officers to open the ballot boxes if foreign materials get their way in there. Now, this is the one that I can tell you is going to bring fireworks, because according to that amendment, as there was another judgment that was done by Maina Kiai in 2017. These two are being developed from the Supreme Court judgment of 2017 and subsequent judgments that were made towards the 2017 general election. So Judge Maina Kiai, in a case, had and said that only the ballot boxes can only be opened by a court order. Actually, that is normally the norm. That is what the law says. The ballot boxes normally are only opened when there is need for recounting, and recounting mostly is ordered when there is a dispute. And that means maybe one of the aggrieved parties, an aspirant, goes to challenge the election results. So now, IBC wants the returning officers to be able to open the ballot boxes if there are foreign materials that are injected there. So, number one is this. Once before the ballot boxes are normally opened, before the voting process starts, the election agents and representatives of political parties, observers, and members from the police are normally witnesses. They witness. But after the election is done, they are sealed. Actually, they're sealed before even counting is done. You don't finish voting, then you start counting. You must seal first. So when they're sealed, and after all the process is done, they can only be opened when there is what is called as when there is a dispute. So what this is what is happening, that in case that there are some stray objects there, returning IBC wants the returning officers to be given authority to open. So I want us to look at these two amendments critically. Number one, let me tell you why this is very key for IBC. They don't want to get to where they were in 2017 because that judgment that was upheld the 59th day, that was the eve of the rerun, that was the 25th of November, it was upheld and it was never challenged. So what's happening, some of the returning officers that were appointed in 2017, because returning officer is a permanent employee of the commission, some of them are still in contract and are the ones that are going still to take charge of this general election. Some of them, of course, were given the contract. So that is why IBC is much into this. So I want us to look at critically why I see it is going to bring a political debate, because even if you look at that article that was done by The Nation, you will actually see that it's one that it's causing some jittery. And Ledamo Lekina, who is an ODM politician, some time back was complaining about IBC not involving the political parties. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this video and you have not yet subscribed, I want to humbly request you to subscribe to our channel and please click the notification bell. Also give us your response. Do you think returning officers should be allowed to open ballot boxes? Why do you think IBC, why do you think this is going to cause jittery? Election officials sometimes are normally partisan. So even them, they can inject foreign materials. Now, what is here is, even remember when the list of returning officers came out, it was a propaganda that majority of people in that list are from Rift Valley, rather Kalenjins, and people saw that was a bit of a ploy to manipulate the election. But that was nothing further from the truth. That list was balanced. There is nothing like 70% was from the Kalenjin community. So the reason why this is going to cause is some other can also sneak in the material so that it can be opened, and in that they can call a rerun. But that is not so much inconsequential. The question that even the writer of that article was asking is one, that amendment is not explaining to what extent or which kind of foreign materials can be put in the ballot boxes. And how will you know? Because first, if you look at the ballot box, it is a very small opening that can only be porous to a piece of paper or so. So if it will be a piece of paper, most definitely it might not be very easy for even the constituent returning officer or any IBC official to find out that there is a foreign material there. So the only probabilities for someone to know is whether maybe someone tries to lift the ballot box and realizes that it is heavier or something like a solid is there. So that amendment, or rather that law they are asking, is not clear on what extent or what kind of foreign materials can get their way in the ballot boxes. But then, constituency returning officers doesn't call for a recount unless there is a dispute. So the issue is, when IBC makes this amendment, political parties are going to protest because they will feel that they have been left out. And in fact, the issue of them getting isolated is going to be a big question, because most political parties have a feeling, and of course it's true, that for you to have a very balanced, verifiable and accountable, free and fair general election, you must work with the political parties through the electioneering process. They must understand all the way from nomination of candidates to the party, to the voters register, and even an update on the voting process and all that. So when IBC wants to isolate political parties in appointing returning officers, they might actually feel isolated, and they are the key political players. Actually, IBC is just the referee. The political parties are the players. Lastly, we are just 2 months to a general election. The timing might be very skeptical. Now, everyone else is asking, especially the Kenya Kwanza team, that for them, they tend to mean that maybe they're not getting the support of the government of the day. Such an amendment will be treated as a ploy to manipulate elections. Because if you're a lawyer, you can help us. Huh? I don't know whether there is a clause that says that the election law should not be amended maybe some few months to general election, whether it is some 8 months or 6 months. So I remember this came out during the Elections Amendment Act of 2021 or 2022 that was passed in January. The timing of this amendment, IBC is going to question. But then it has already been submitted. Of course, it's supposed to be tabled in the National Assembly and then to be discussed and see if it can be passed. Then the president will append his signature. Then from that, we will see whether they allow. But if you ask me, I don't see political parties, I don't see this amendment going through, because even now, the House is polarized and is divided. This might be the last amendment that they might have to look at before the National Assembly is closed, or rather is suspended, awaiting the next government. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my analysis.